I remember people commenting on the bird singing.
But where was I? I was here by myself though, huh?
It's maybe still in Joshua Tree. Right thought? Oh. Ew, frozen.
Huh. Don't.
You want it higher? I can get that pillow. It might be better a little higher.
You think? This one would be better, but
Why? It might be
I don't know.
teetering.
Underneath everything. Hello, everyone. Just 1 second. We're trying to find a. No, esto no funciona tampoco.
Too high or no? It's better too high.
Let's see. Gallery. There we go. Okay. So hello, everyone. Welcome. I see we have Spain represented, England. Hello, Robert. Laura, you're back. Are you back in Spain?
Me?
Yeah, did you come back to Spain or are you in Germany?
I'm in Spain. I never was in Germany.
Oh, you never were? Okay.
I will go back to Germany soon. But since Corona started, I wasn't in Germany.
Oh, no. Okay, well, welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have been traveling. We're now back in the desert of California at my mother's house. And we'll probably be here for a few more days and then go back up to Northern California. And our country is going out of control now with the coronavirus cases. It's kind of like, where do you go? The desert is still probably the safest place. There's the most space, the least amount of cases. But even down here, it's much higher than it was 6 months ago when I was here.
But you will have the vaccine very soon, don't you?
Our expert is saying that by the time it can be distributed to everybody, manufactured and distributed, it might be June. So I don't know, very soon is June or very soon,
Too late. For many people, it will be too late.
Too late, maybe, yeah. But we're still healthy, so that's good. And how in Spain, I understand the confinamiento is by city, right? By zone, so you can leave your house, but you can't leave your city. Is that how it works?
In some cases, yes, but in big cities, for example, in Madrid, it is based on areas of health services, For example, there is a primary assistance center, medical center, and depending on that center will cover certain area. Depending on how many people is infected, they will confine the whole area or not.
Okay.
So it may happen that in the right side of street, people are confined, and in the other side is not good. Is no confination or whatever.
Oh, that's crazy, huh?
It
That's
is.
so funny. Artificial boundaries, artificial fronteras.
The unofficial, yes.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody in Barcelona yesterday, and he was talking about that exact thing. And he said he was jogging, running, and he realized he was running in the Barcelona side. He lived in a town or an area, the name of which I've heard of, but I can't think of it at this moment. But anyways, he realized for 20 minutes he'd been in Barcelona. So he realized he was like illegal or something for 20 minutes because he was on the wrong side of the street. Yeah, I mean, here in America, we probably could use at least something like that because there's like nothing. I mean, it is total disorganized. Our cases have been rising like this. Right now, we're at an average that if it was Spain, it would be about 20,000, 25,000 cases per day, which I know Spain has touched, but you could see how many that is. And America is approaching 200,000 a day, 180,000, 160,000 cases a day, and more than 1,000 dead people every day. But we're going to talk a little bit more about right view afterwards. We talked about it last week, and I've been looking into it more, and it's so rich and complicated, the Buddhist teachings. But it's also so pertinent, in my view, to especially America right now. This right view, seeing clearly, and people here don't see very clearly. We're very confused people right now. There's millions of people who think completely different than another million people. It's like, oh my God. Anyway, so what we can do to help us see clearly is meditate, right? That's probably the best thing we can do for just about anything. Unless you have coronavirus, then I think going to the doctor is better than meditating. But besides that, so we'll meditate for 30 minutes or so. And what I want to invite you to be aware of, and this one also leads to the second factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, called right thought or right intention or right resolve, is to notice your thoughts. So if they come, don't just push them away, but maybe notice them, be aware of them, and notice whether they're wholesome, helpful, leading towards happiness, or whether maybe they're not wholesome and they're maybe leading towards suffering. Not to judge them in the sense, ooh, good or bad, but just to notice. And I'll bring that up towards the end, and I'll just add it. We'll start off with the calming, centering practice, and then in the final 10 minutes, maybe open it up more to what kind of thoughts are we thinking as they arise. And we don't force them, they just arise. Any questions or comments? Okay, thank you for showing up. I don't have my bell, so I'm just going to use my phone. I'll put it right here so you guys can hear it. Okay, so finding a comfortable posture, one that you can maintain hopefully for the full 30 minutes. And starting off by arriving to this present moment, to the here and now. So one way that we can do this is by creating an embodied presence, unifying the mind and the body. So maybe you could do a body scan, scanning over the parts of the body and noticing any sensation. Could be simply physical or might be even emotional. Might be a sense of energy, a flow, of currents of energy in the body. And oftentimes the transition from our thinking, mundane life to the meditation can be a little difficult at first. So don't push those thoughts away. Maybe sometimes just let it run its course, finish a thought, finish a sentence even, and then try to let go and come to the body, finding the body. It's important that we have a relaxed presence. We don't want to be tense. We don't want to be tight. So if we're always fighting off our thoughts, we might not get to that relaxed presence we want to have, relaxed concentration. So just letting the thoughts run their course. So at any time, you can use the body, the sensations in the body as an anchor, a home base, a place to return to when you notice you're thinking, when you notice the mind is lost in thought. Another very common anchor is the breath. So let's find our breath now, if you haven't already. So maybe you notice the breath in its journey through the body, entering through the nostrils, passing through the chest into the belly. This makes a very good anchor, following the breath. Or you can pick a spot where the breath is obvious, maybe even pleasant to follow. You can also use labels if that's helpful for you. Naming the breath as it enters the body, breathing in, breathing out. Some people would even say, we're feeling the breath, we're experiencing the breath, the body breathing. with an attitude of curiosity, kindness. And finally, if the body or the breath, if neither is very attractive to you right now, you can use the process of listening or hearing as an anchor. So receptive listening where you don't go out and search for something to hear, but you just wait until something arrives or enters into your field of hearing. Can be very relaxing, very receptive, very open. And so just choosing whatever feels best to you right now, comfortable, as we relax the mind, calm the mind, center the mind, creating hopefully a state of samadhi, relaxed concentration, even if for a moment, and coming back again and again without any judgment, without any self-criticism or frustration, hopefully. And if those things arise, we just watch those with kindness as well. if you are still experiencing lots of sticky thought, you might try to feel your thoughts. That is, feel the body, drop into the body, see if you can find any sensation that might be connected to the thought, connected to the thinking. And just feel it, experience it, and see if that doesn't loosen up whatever it was you were thinking about. So if you are willing or interested and the mind is a little more settled, a little more calm, you might experiment with noticing your thoughts. So this is like a third foundation of mindfulness practice. So thoughts arise, we notice the thoughts, and then just notice or ask yourself, is this a wholesome or unwholesome thought? Is it one that leads to happiness or one that leads to suffering, to unhappiness? And then just let it go. And then when another thought arises, you could ask yourself again the same question, whether it's onward leading towards happiness, the end of suffering, or leading towards possible suffering. Or you could just continue with the samatha practice or any other practice that you feel comfortable with. So, no matter where you might be with your meditation, let's return to our bodies. Let's return to an embodied presence. Bringing the awareness back to sensations, possibly different sensations now than 30 minutes ago. Again, just being aware, observing whatever might be obvious. Maybe you have body parts that are sleeping or a bit numb. Just noticing that, feeling that. And then take a moment to center your awareness in the area of the heart, in the chest, feeling that hopefully expansive, open area. And then thanking yourself for your practice, for taking this time out of your day to do this important task, this important contribution to our goodwill, to our health, mental health, spiritual health, even physical health. And then maybe also reminding yourself that there are others on this call also practicing for their well-being and the well-being of others, thanking them for their practice and supporting your practice. And maybe imagining that you can extend your awareness out and just give everybody a big mindfulness hug. And when you hear the sound of the bell, which will come from my phone and possibly be just one little bell, noticing whatever might arise in the mind or in the body, possibly thoughts of, oh, I was just getting the hang of it, to thank gosh, it's over, or whatever might arise. Just letting it be a little mini practice of awareness, of kind, loving awareness, as Ram Dass would call it. Being in this present moment. Thank you all very much. Excuse me 1 second. It was kind of interesting that I introduced the idea of being aware of our thoughts and whether they're wholesome or unwholesome. Just at the time that my brother came from his house, he lives about 45 minutes away in the high desert, and came here to watch a motorcycle race that I guess is happening somewhere in Europe right now. And I guess there's a Spaniard who is supposedly the best of the bike riders. My brother loves motorcycles. He had arrived on his motorcycle, but now he was talking to my mother who's deaf. So all I could hear was they're, talking, and it was interesting. It's like he knows when the meditation is, my brain is like, so I had a few, I guess you'd say, unwholesome thoughts, not too much ill will. And that is exactly what the Buddha said to watch out for is, are they thoughts of ill will? Are they thoughts of hatred? Are they thoughts of cruelty? It wasn't quite that bad, but I was a little irritated, you might say. So anyways, but Anna Monica is asking them to be quiet. And now I can't hear him, so must be working. It is kind of interesting. I don't know if any of you have experience of living with a deaf person, but it is kind of interesting. You can just kind of, do your thing and you won't bother them because they can't hear you. But the reverse isn't so. Anyways, thank you. So first, before we talk a little bit more about right view, the first factor, which we talked about last week, and then move a little bit into the second factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, which is right thought or right resolve or right intention. I was wondering if there are any questions or anybody who might want to share their experience or maybe what kind of thoughts arose.
I had a similar thing, Jim, with the kind of the distraction. My neighbors upstairs started listening to some really loud music, and all things that I knew, and kind of music that I like. Also like David Bowie and stuff like that in there.
Yeah,
and it was really challenging to try and hear it but not listen to it, to acknowledge it's there but not kind of find myself singing along and have to keep coming back to, but trying not to get annoyed about it as well. Just that.
Yes, thank you. I was listening to David Bowie last night even. I love David Bowie. Yeah, now that's, we can use, of course, the process of hearing, listening as an anchor, this receptive, but the idea is not to, sing along or to interpret or, get the mind going, but sometimes it's so hard. Like for me, I was hearing what my mother and brother were saying, and then I was hearing the words, and, I was getting a little caught up. They were, talking about movies and stuff like that. Yeah. And probably the most important part of that practice, though, is to try to be okay with what the mind wants to do, right? I mean, the mind knows, is familiar with the song, wants to sing along. That's just totally normal. We don't want to get into a fight with it. Maybe we just have to, finish that song out or whatever. And if we get irritated, like for me, the practice that it probably serves me best now is when something irritates me, or I feel some anger, some resentment. Drop into the body, feel the energy. Sometimes it's like full body, just feel it. 99% of the time, that's sufficient to stop it. Now it may arise a few moments later, but at least in that moment, it calms it down. By calming down, absorbing, experiencing the energy in the body, my mind calms down. And then maybe a few moments later, whatever it is that's irritating me, say like the music, if it continues, probably thoughts will arise again, and then I got to drop back down into the body. But for me, the body is the most effective way that I can calm myself down that I know of. Some people are able to use other thoughts, like, metta, loving kindness practice sometimes is good. May you guys be happy. May you be, and you're sending it to your neighbors upstairs or sending it to my brother and my mother. But my normal one is I go into my body. Oh, bye. Julieta has to leave. Have a good day. Take care. Anybody else like to share, or maybe has a question? Or
I also wanted to share.
Hi, Robert here.
Oh,
Just
okay, hold on, Robert. Robert.
wait, I felt quite a bit of emotion there. Hello.
I'll come back to you, Lara, because I don't think he hears you. Go ahead, Robert.
Sorry. Yeah, just I think I was kind of following what you were saying about drop into the body, see how you're feeling, and I was feeling quite a lot of emotion and something that's been bothering me for a while, I think, which I've not really acknowledged. So that was quite useful. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about it, but it was useful to, I've been feeling kind of tired as well, and I feel it's that's been tiring me out. So yeah, I'm going to have to sit with that a bit, I think, to see where I go with that. But it was very useful to really, to sort of connect with how the body was feeling, because it was feeling something emotional coming from somewhere else. That and at the end, you were asking, how do you feel at the end of it, or how might you feel at the end of it? And I was actually feeling, the last 5 minutes was quite physically uncomfortable. I had a pain in my leg, and so I didn't want to move, and I didn't move in the end because I like the stillness of meditating. So I didn't move, but I was ready. I was quite happy when it ended. And then, of course, I shifted slightly, and the pain went away. So there was the impermanence there, which I really like to think about, impermanence. So yeah, that's it from me.
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, Lara, please.
yeah, I just wanted to share that I had an argument today with my mother, and parts of that interesting conversation were coming up now during the meditation, and it was really useful to just notice and say, unwholesome, unwholesome, and just noticing, not having to deal with it, not trying to, not getting involved with it, just saying it. It was, the practice brought lightness to these thoughts, I think, and it gave them the same weight that the wholesome thoughts had.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was really nice. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. It's exactly what we want to do. It's amazing the power of just mere observing, mere noticing. I think I was watching a little mini YouTube video of Muji. Maybe some of you have heard me talk about Muji, or you know who he is. He's an Advaita Vedanta teacher rather than a Buddhist teacher, but he teaches a lot the same stuff. And he was just talking about how we just don't talk about observing enough. And it's so powerful just to simply observe. Yeah, and I regret that I often want to remind you guys to, if you get kind of stuck, it's a practice that I do for myself too. If you get kind of stuck in your meditation with a thought, you just can't quite let it go. What I'll often do to myself is I'll just remind myself, be the observer, just observe, just observe. And for some reason, that word and that perspective kind of allows me to sort of let go, stand back a little bit, get that perspective, that's a little away from whatever it is. And then usually I'm kind of back in a much calmer place, just by reminding myself, be the observer or observe. And in some traditions, they will even kind of put it that way, that our true nature is awareness or observance or, seeing in that kind of kind way. So yeah, thank you. That was exactly right. So if there's nobody else, maybe we'll talk a little bit more about right view. And then I'll introduce briefly the second factor, which is right intention or thought or resolve. I felt there's right view. There's just so much, and I researched a little bit more about the history, I guess you might say, of right view, and how it appears to have kind of changed, maybe because we don't really know exactly what the Buddha said, right? We believe we do, but the tradition was to recite or even chant, to memorize orally what he taught for a few hundred years before they actually wrote it down. It was written down somewhere in the 3rd or 2nd century before the Common Era, which is a good 300 years maybe after when the Buddha lived. And they wrote these Nikayas, these suttas, and they wrote what they believed the Buddha thought, or what he said during his 65 years or whatever it was, or 45 I think, of teaching, but we can't be 100% sure. And then also there were monastics, there were important teachers of that time also who had contributed their observations, right, their experiences also to the writings. So having said that, I also have a mind that's been going crazy lately in America with the politics. My mind wants to understand, like my mind wants to understand like how 72 million people could vote for Donald Trump. It's like my mind is like breaking trying to understand this. I don't quite understand this. And it's kind of the same with right view. It's like my mind wants to understand what is right view. What did the Buddha taught? And it wants to do it in a pithy, short, concise way. So I think I found something that I like to look going on Wikipedia, which it's kind of fun, but much of the teachings that you'll find on Wikipedia were actually written by one of the teachers that we often talk about when we have these classes, Thanissaro Bhikkhu, Bhikkhu Bodhi, or Bhikkhu Analayo. So the 3 monks that we probably cite more often than any others, they're also the writers of the Wikipedia pages. So it's a good place to go. And, it often has it summarized in a really nice way.
On Buddhism, the Wikipedia pages on Buddhism.
On Buddhism, yeah. No, not on sports or something like that. But okay, so I'm going to do what I often struggle with here is the share screen. And let's see if I can find, where is Firefox? Oh, here it is. Oh, but that's
scroll. I think it's in the next row. Scroll.
Oh, look at that. Luis sent me this. This is so funny, this WhatsApp image, but that's not what I wanted. I didn't want to do this in Monica. I want Firefox. That's a funny picture. Bear with me 1 second. Okay, here we go. So just a reminder, here's our Noble Eightfold Path, which is the 4th factor of the 4 Noble Truths. This is the path to the end of suffering. So right
Sorry,
here.
Jim, I'm not sure we're seeing that.
Oh.
We're seeing a folder.
Oh, you're seeing a folder. You're not seeing the Noble Eightfold Path?
We're seeing the menu on the left, Real Estate, 20th Street.
I just closed.
I'm going to close that. And okay, let me try one more time because it's right. First page. How about now? Do you see Noble Eightfold Path? Okay, not sure. Probably have too many things open. Okay, so here's just a summary once again of the Noble Eightfold Path, right view or understanding, right thought, right speech, right action. And the word right often can be translated as wise as well, often is. Right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. The first two are called the sila or ethical, they're the panya or wisdom factors. The next three are the sila or ethical factors, and the final three are the samadhi or practice, meditation factors. So now going back to right view. So I took this right out of Wikipedia, and I believe this is from Thanissaro Bhikkhu, who, by the way, is one of the foremost Pali and Thai scholars. So just a little background, in the 70s, maybe some in the 60s, but mostly in the 1970s, you had Westerners go to Southeast Asia, mainly to Thailand, but also to Burma, which is now Myanmar, and practice. Some of them even became monks and a few nuns in the Theravada tradition of Buddhism. Okay, so the main two schools, the big ones are Mahayana and Theravada. Theravada is mainly in the Southeast Asian, Sri Lanka, Burma, Thailand, Cambodia. And there are many, many, many monasteries there that are still practicing in the tradition hundreds of years later, right? The same tradition. And the Mahayana is more what you find in China, Japan, and Korea. And of course, then there's also the Tibetan schools. So there were these Americans and British mainly who went to Thailand and Burma, and they learned the Theravada tradition. And they're the ones that have brought it back to the West. And the ones that we practice. And there are some people like Joseph Goldstein who never did take on robes, never became a monk, but he was friends with and practiced with many of these people. Jack Kornfield, though, was a monk for a few years, and many of them were monks. Thanissaro Bhikkhu came back. He's from New York, I believe. And now he has a monastery just 2 hours from where I'm sitting right now in Southern California, in San Diego area. And it's also just a half an hour away from the monastery of Thich Nhat Hanh, who we talk about a lot, who is from the Mahayana tradition. Okay, so he breaks down right view, this very first factor, and Bhikkhu Bodhi as well, into mundane or non-mundane. Mundane, mainly being our worldly view, experience in our life, the manifest life that we experience most of the time, and then the non-mundane view, or that is beyond. And keep in mind, these teachings arose at a time when people really, reincarnation, rebirth was the accepted reality, I guess you might say, at the time of the Buddha, when he was born. And he was born a Hindu, so that's what they believed. So a lot of it has to do with rebirth. So according to more or less the Buddhism that we follow and talk about, Theravada, mundane and supramundane right view involve accepting these three following doctrines. Karma, which we talked about last week, right? That every action of our body, speech, and mind has a karmic result. That is, there is a consequence. And it influences the kind of future rebirths and realms that we might enter into. So this was the belief that you might be reborn in a realm that could be superior or inferior to this human one, and that at some point you be released from the samsara of being reborn. So that's one. Number two, this one we talk about more. This one is the three marks of existence, or the three characteristic of all conditioned things. That everything, whether physical, mental, is impermanent. Robert mentioned that in his share. Anicca, right? It's the Pali word, impermanent. It's a source of suffering, or imperfect, right? We talk about that. And it lacks a self, anatta, It is impersonal. And this is really the insight practice. The vipassana practice is to see these 3 marks of existence. And then the third one, and this is the one that is really attributed to the Buddha, is that right view means seeing the 4 noble truths. And I'll go up here just a little bit. This quote at the top is allegedly from the Buddha. And what is right view? Knowledge with regard to dukkha, that's the first noble truth. Knowledge with regard to the origin of dukkha, that's the second noble truth. Knowledge with regard to the cessation of dukkha, third noble truth. And knowledge with regard to the way of practice or our path leading to the cessation of dukkha, the fourth noble truth. Which interestingly is, the first factor of that is right view. So it sort of comes in on itself. So this I liked. Okay, it's like I can work with this. Right view means understanding karma, understanding the 3 marks of existence or the 3 characteristics of all conditioned things, and it means understanding the 4 noble truths. This is right view. See what time it is. I don't know with how much time I left. I'm going to be able to get too much to the next one, but I'm going to try. So, oh, look at that. I love Google and it fixes my misspellings. So real quickly, I want to mention this one aspect of right view that probably trips us up more than any, at least it does for me. And that is the right view of non-self. This is unique to Buddhism. In Hinduism, there is a self, an Atman that wants to join the Brahman or however all that works. I'm not 100% sure. There's a soul, essentially in Hinduism and in Christianity and other practices. But in Buddhism, the argument is that there really isn't a fixed soul that continues on, which to me kind of contradicts the whole rebirth thing, but paradox is part of Buddhism, right? And if we can accept the fact that there's not a self and really incorporate that into our view, it can lead to the cessation of suffering, because so much of our suffering has to do with making it personal, right? Grasping onto things that aren't really us, but we do that out of survival. So now this is coming, I believe I took this from Joseph Goldstein's book on mindfulness, but he's quoting the Buddha. The foundation that brings us from the conceptual and worldly right view to what the Buddha called the right view that is noble, taintless, supramundane, a factor of the path, is impermanence. And with impermanence, when we see how everything is changing, this can lead us to the understanding that there is no self. Because if there was a self, it wouldn't be impermanent, right? It would be permanent. It would continue on. But because everything is impermanent, how could there be a lasting self? So these two feed each other. They support each other. So I tried to do that quickly. I hopefully didn't confuse you guys more. So just to kind of, summarize this self thing, much like what Lara said, I just love how she put it. If we can kind of observe, step back and observe the thoughts arising, notice how they stay just for a while, and normally they just pass on. And notice how the mind wants to attribute that thought as being me. I am that thought. I am an irritated person because I was feeling irritation with respect to my family or whatever. This tendency of mind, this habit that our mind has, when we notice that that's all it is a habit, we start to let go. We start to let go. And it's the letting go. I don't know, you can't read it, but Ajahn Chah, Theravadan teacher in the Thai forest tradition, he said that right view is about knowing understanding, seeing it, and then letting it go. So real quickly, I'm going to now move to show you real quickly the next one, which is thought. So I'm going to go. So do you see right or wise resolve, thought or intention now? A short one. Do you guys see that? Okay. So real quickly, so now we move to the second factor, right? And the second factor is right resolve, right intention. And this is where down here at the bottom is why I wanted you guys to look at your thoughts, because this was suggested by the Buddha. It's actually believed that he kind of like gave his followers an exercise similar to what I did, which was to have a clear seeing of our thoughts, a clear discernment of the kinds of thoughts that arise in the mind, those that are rooted in desire, ill will, or cruelty, and those that are inclined towards renunciation, goodwill, and compassion. Neither of which are us. They're just thoughts that we can observe, but these are the type of things that come up. And finally, and we'll talk more about this next week, this one, because we've just begun on it. But this is one of my favorite quotes and one of my favorite reminders. Bhikkhus. Bhikkhus can mean anywhere from beggar to monk. So the Buddha is talking to his followers. Bhikkhus, whatever a bhikkhu frequently thinks and ponders upon, that will become the inclination of the mind. Basically, what he's saying is that our mind is habit forming, right? Our mind develops tendencies to think in a certain way, to believe in a certain way. This is just how our minds are. They're kind of this weird sort of sticky but somewhat malleable plastic. It's got plasticity, they now say, the neurosciences, right? That when we think and ponder upon something a little bit, it starts to create a habit. And then that is where the mind will go. And we have a little bit of influence over this. When we're mindful, when we're aware, when we have clear seeing, right? And so hopefully we don't want to develop a habit of ill will, right? We don't want to develop, I wouldn't think, a habit of cruel thoughts, of hateful thoughts. But we have to watch our thoughts too, not only our speech, but our thoughts, because we could dig ourselves into a trench where then our brain is constantly thinking, something that is not producing happiness. And for me, I have no idea whether rebirth exists or not, but I do know that happiness exists or not. And I noticed that all these things that they say will lead towards the cessation of suffering, which is the cessation of samsara, the rebirth, also are leading towards happiness. So I just kind of stick to that. I'll stick to this world right now, happiness, contentment. And when I'm, criticizing myself or criticizing someone else, I'm not feeling happy. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Is there anybody who'd like to say something about that? And yes, Javier, please unmute yourself.
Hello to everybody. I have a difficult question. I don't know if you are going to answer. You said that the self don't exist, so the mind don't exist. The mind is a belief, or what do you say about that? Because you are talking about the mind, but the mind don't exist. It's an invention, or I don't know.
Yes, that is a big question, Javier. And I'll give you two quick little answers. So try to find your mind. See if you can find it, right? And if you find it and you know exactly where it is, you let me know where it's at. That's one answer. The other one is a very typical answer that the Buddha had to questions like that. And he would say, that question is not onward leading. That question is not relevant. It's like the parable about the arrow, where the person is stabbed by the arrow, and before he will allow anybody to take the arrow out, he wants to know who shot it. Was the person tall or short? What tribe was the person from? Was he noble? Was he a regular worker? You know, it's a long, long parable, stuff like that. And the point being that none of that stuff is important. By the time he answers all those questions, he's dead, right? So some of these questions we can't actually answer. And the mind is one of those. Is it infinite? You know, is there truly rebirth or not? You know, but in terms of our practice, this would be what I would say though about the mind. Don't take it personally. Whether it's here or here, the Greeks used to think the mind was here in the heart center, the ancient Greeks. Whether it's real, whether it's an invention, the key is not to take it personally. It's like the mind has a mind of its own, right? And it's going to think up shit that based on, you know, our karma, causes and conditions, but not to take that personally, not think, okay, if my mind thinks this, that means I am something. Don't go there. Don't go there. And we'll try to talk about it more because it's a fun conversation. And yet it doesn't normally lead to the end of suffering, though. It just kind of gets you all tied up in knots and, you know, but some people love it. Some people like to think about it. Did you want to add something, Javier?
No, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Some teachers said that there is a big mind, no?
Yes, and that's a form of meditation, to imagine that the mind is like the sky. And in the Tibetan tradition, you know, that is kind of what they believe, is that the mind is just luminous and forever, and we can tap into that. But it's not like there's an individual mind that is you. No.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
So there's nobody else. You want to do a short loving kindness meditation? And today, because, you know, I got my brother here and stuff, maybe we could, well, I was thinking about the small groups. We'll still try to do the small groups, but I might step out for a minute. Okay, so yeah, let's find a comfortable posture again. Just come back to the body. Oof, all that talking sometimes it gets me right up in my head and disconnects me from my body sometimes. So just dropping back into the body, maybe feeling the heart center. And, you know, this loving kindness practice, this practice of metta, is such a good practice to create those habits of mind that are wholesome, that are onward leading towards the end of our suffering, towards happiness. So let's start with ourself. I'll say some phrases. You can say them mentally to yourself. May I be happy. May I be well. May I be safe. And may I live with ease. And now let's try to offer metta, loving kindness, goodwill to all those people who are dealing with the coronavirus, the nurses and doctors and technicians, and even those workers in the street who are at risk every day as they do their jobs. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you live with ease. And now we can try a difficult person, maybe the neighbors upstairs, our mothers, our brothers, or anybody else where you might feel a little resentment, to see if it works. Offer them some goodwill, some metta. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you live with ease. And finally, all beings in all directions without exception, may all beings be happy. May all beings be well. May all beings be safe. May all beings live with ease. And finally, we'll dedicate or renounce the fruit of our practice today, the teachings, our Buddha nature, and our Sangha or community. Offer this to the benefit of all beings. May all beings be happy and peaceful, healthy and strong, safe and protected. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, free from war and violence and discrimination, racism, and free from coronavirus. And may all beings find their path, find their view towards the end of suffering, towards their happiness, the view towards freedom, the view towards peace. And since I don't have a bell, I will say ding. That's the end of our metta practice. Thank you all very much. So nice to see you guys. Keep me connected. Keep Anna Mana. I don't know. Do you feel connected to Spain and stuff when you do this? Don't want to speak for her. But yeah, before and we'll set up some small groups for a few minutes so you guys can meet. I do want to ask Nacho. And Nacho, I apologize. I've been so busy with mundane things happening here. I haven't had a chance to respond to you. But I'll just tell everybody, Nacho has been maintaining now the website, saladana.org. And so now there's some in-person yoga classes at Saladana, small ones. But also, Nacho, are you putting the other Zoom classes on the calendar as well? Okay, so now you've got a one-stop place where you can go for other sessions as well on the saladana.org website. Thank you, Nacho, for that. Thank you for your service. So yeah, feel free to unmute yourself or whatever and say hi, and then I'll set up some small groups and you guys can talk in small groups if you want to.
Thanks, Jim.
Bye, Damien.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
I'm gonna roll as well. Just take care
Good to see you.
of yourselves.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Yeah. Take care, everybody.
All right, here we go. Make those rooms open. See what happens. She's all by herself. Good.